Hey everyone, and welcome to the Retro Channel. And yes, my hair is a mess, but never mind all that because we have a PlayStation 1 that's in serious need of repair. So far I've already found two major issues with this console, so let's just plug it in. We don't even need to plug in video output for this one because I think it's going to become pretty obvious the moment we power it on. Yeah, I've had lawnmowers that sound better than that. So that's our first problem. The other major problem with this console is it doesn't have a mod chip, which is just unheard of. But before we go trying to stick a mod chip in this thing, we need to sort out the issue with this CD-ROM drive. So let's whip the covers off and take a peek. And for those playing along at home, this is a 7500 series model, so it is the last one to feature the parallel port. Better take that disc out first. Right, here's our laser assembly, and doesn't feel too bad, but definitely makes a ticking sound. Let's unplug this and take a closer look. So on this little connector, the white and the grey wire go to the Sled motor, which is this guy here, and the other two remaining grey wires go to our Spindle motor. So what I'm going to do is just mark that final wire like that. And with a pair of tweezers, I'm just going to carefully pop out these last two wires, just so we can clip them up to the bench power supply. So I'll set the bench supply to 3 volts, that should be more than enough, and let's hook this up, see what it does. Doesn't really matter which way around these are right now, it's just going to spin in the wrong direction if I've got them backwards. Ooh yeah. Let's throw a disc back on that. So I'm not sure if it's an issue internal to the motor or if it's just that this hub has been pushed down a bit too much. Sometimes these things will get pushed in and then they'll rub on those little screws that are hidden underneath. And in fact, if I push down in that area, I can actually feel it rubbing against those screws. So it may just be that this hub has been pushed down just a little bit too much. So let's bust out the old feeler gauge. I think normally somewhere around 0.02 inches or 0.5 millimeters is usually the right amount of gap that you want underneath this spindle hub. And it does go in, but yeah, that is quite tight. So we might just have to lift this up a little bit, which may be easier said than done because this outer edge is like ceramic, so it can break pretty easily. And because this hub is just a friction fit, usually once they've been pushed down too far, even if you lift them back up, they'll usually slowly get pushed back down again. Oh yeah, and that definitely moved up very easily. Yeah, that's just going to come straight off. So we'll definitely need a new hub. I'm pretty sure I've got some spares. And while we've got that off, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of oil in that motor. I'm just going to try and remove this little washer just so the oil can get in there easily. There it goes. So this is clock oil, but I found it works quite well on these little DC motors. I'm just going to sort of jiggle this around a little bit just to try and get that oil to penetrate. Let's power it up again, see how it sounds. It is still pretty noisy, but we'll throw some oil in the underside in a minute. Let's just get our little washer back in place before it goes missing. And while we've got the oil out, we may as well oil the underside. So you just want to put it in these two holes in the center here. If you put it in these holes, you're just going to be putting oil over the motor windings, which isn't going to help anything. So ideally you want something with a fine tip that actually goes inside these holes. Otherwise the oil will just tend to sit on top. Just squeeze a little bit down in there. Let's take it for another spin. Yeah, that sounds a lot happier. Alright, let me see if I can find a replacement hub. Right, I do have these ones which came off AliExpress. Obviously they do look a bit different. This one has like a metal ring here rather than this ceramic stuff. But hopefully this should work. Let's see how it fits on. It definitely feels a lot tighter, which is a good start. So I'm going to stick the 0.5mm feeler gauge back in and then just try and push the hub down just like that. So I can still easily move the feeler gauge around, and with any luck, that shouldn't rub anymore. Let's have one more listen. Well, that sounds much better. Let's throw a disc on there. Beautiful. It also takes quite a bit longer to come to a complete stop, which is exactly what you want to see. So we can pop these wires back in, and that's our spindle motor done. While we've got this out though, we may as well clean up the rest of it. Right, let's pop out the wires for the sled motor, see how that sounds. Now 3 volts may be a little bit too much for this. Let's just, that's okay. Definitely sounds a little crunchy. So I'll leave the laser up the end here because it does make it easier to get this cover off. So there's just 2 small screws up the front near the spindle. And this cover slides off that way. So if you've got the laser up against the spindle, it's going to get in the way of this cover and make it hard to get off because of this plastic bit here. So there is still some remnants of grease here. Oh, but that is completely dry. That's not moving at all. So this will need a full disassembly, clean and lube. So first thing you need to do is pop out this little cog here, which is actually held in at the back. So you just push in these 2 tabs. And some pliers on this. There it goes. Then you can pull that out to get the laser assembly out. Make sure it's all the way towards the back. And then just lift up on each edge of this white plastic piece just a little bit and slide it towards the rear. It should lift out. Then you just lift up a bit on this side and unhook the laser. With all that out of the way, we can remove this little cog here and the little one next to it as well. And then basically just clean every part that comes in contact with another part. So I'll start with this piece here, which is obviously our laser assembly. So we just want to clean up all the old grease or all the old lubricant off this. I'm just using a cotton bud with some IPA. And then I'm going to put that aside because for this part I'm actually going to use a toothbrush and some IPA just to get in all those little crevices. And same for all these little gears. And once everything's had a chance to dry, we just need to re-lube and reassemble. So in my little squeezy bottle is white lithium grease. Ignore the color of this, it's just the bottle is, I don't know, turning orange slowly. But either way, you can use white lithium or silicone. Just make sure that whatever you use does say it is safe on plastic. And of course you could don some gloves for this, but yeah, fingers work just fine. So I've just put a little bit of grease on my fingers and then I'm just gonna sort of work that into the gear a little bit. Doesn't have to be too perfect because it'll distribute itself around once this is all reassembled. Do the same for the rest. And finally, our laser assembly. Right, that should do it. Just a thin layer of grease over everything. So now we can put this back together. So just put this part here over this piece along here. In fact, I forgot to clean that. Ooh, yeah. Just a little tiny bit over here. All right, now we're ready to put this back together. So this edge here hooks over this little rail. So just slip that over there, drop that down. And once again, we just push this all the way up to the end and reinstall this plastic part so the teeth match up on the same side. So to put this back in, you just offset it from the front a little bit so you can see that the teeth don't line up here. It'll drop down and then you just slide that forward. And then finally, you can put in the last remaining gear that we first took out. Just sort of twist it around a little bit until it clicks in. That's it, we should be good. I'm just going to go clean all this grease off my fingers. Right, so now that we're relubed, I'm just going to put a drop of oil into the rear of our sled motor. There it goes. And we'll try and get a drop of oil down the front as well, so in between here. Let's see if that sounds any better. Oh yes, much better. Cool, we'll get the top cover back on and then give the lens a little clean. So we just want to make sure this ribbon cable sits in this little channel here. Put that on there like so, and then it should just slide forward. Throw our screws back in. And then finally, with a fresh cotton bud, we'll just give this lens a little clean. So just a tiny bit of IPA on one end. Just gently go over it. That should do. And then I like to use the other end just to give it a good drying. Beautiful, that's it. Plug everything back in. I won't bother putting on the top cover. I'll just trick this lid switch. I won't hook up a display just yet. Let's just have a listen to how it sounds now. Ah, much better. In fact, you can probably hardly hear it, which is exactly as it should be. Right, display's hooked up. I'm going to swap this disc over because I actually have another copy of GT2 and this particular disc has an FMV on the outer edge of the disc and it's a little bit scratched up. So there is a certain part where most of my PS1s will tend to skip. I do have, I think, one of them that can play through it perfectly, which is quite a surprise. Let's see how this one performs. Yeah, okay. There was a little bit of skipping, but like I said, that was pretty much expected. I think out of the 6 PS1s that I have, only one of them can actually read through it. So yeah, I'm not really surprised by that. So at least this thing is now perfectly quiet. It doesn't sound like the tappets are worn anymore. So what it needs now is a mod chip, and we'll see if it can read burnt discs. And I think on that note, that's where I'm going to leave this one. We'll do the mod chip in the next video because I do want to go into a bit more detail on that, and I don't want it to get lost too much in this video, which was just focusing on the CD-ROM drive. I did, however, do a quick recap off camera. I won't show that here because I've already shown it before, and I know some people would get offended by it. Anyway, that is it for this one. Thank you all for watching, and a huge thanks to the people that support the channel on Patreon. They'll obviously have early access to the next video, which will be on the mod chip install. So if you want to support the channel and get early access, ad-free videos, links are in the description. Until next time, see you next time. Bye.